Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom. I'm David Mencer, Israeli government spokesman. A quick update from me and then over to your questions, which you should put in the chat, all of which we will answer this Monday, the 12th of August, day 311 of the October 7th war. For clarity, here are Israel's war aims: the return of all of our hostages, dismantling of Hamas's governmental and military capabilities, and removing the terrorist threat to Israel. On this eve of Tisha B'Av, the 9th of the Hebrew month of Av, the saddest day in the Jewish calendar, Israel is operating decisively to ensure that the pre-October 7th reality will never repeat itself. Never again is now. Now sad news of IDF fallen soldiers in this war, 690 since the start of the war. Sergeant Omer Ginsberg fell yesterday, aged just 19 years old. Sergeant Ginsberg was from Kiryat Tivon and fell in battle in southern Gaza, battling Hamas. All of our losses are devastating. All of us here in Israel send condolences to these dear families of our heroic soldiers who fell in combat from terror attacks, and our civilians. The government and the people embrace the bereaved families in their most difficult hour. We are committed to the testament of the fallen, to continue to absolute victory over Hamas. May the memories of our fallen heroes be a blessing forever. Now an update from COGAT and their work coordinating aid into Gaza. Aid deliveries continue to enter every day via all the crossings. In the last 24 hours, COGAT have facilitated large quantities of medical equipment and other aid requiring unique delivery conditions. Yesterday, a truck carrying insulin, vaccines and other medicines was transferred to Gaza while ensuring a cold chain. We will continue to expand our efforts to facilitate humanitarian and medical responses for Gaza. At the end of last week, the IDF revealed that Hamas had embedded rocket launch sites, rocket launch pits near the largest fuel storage facility in Gaza. This was along the Philadelphia corridor, a few dozen meters away from Gaza's largest fuel storage facility for civilian use. Any damage to the facility, including rocket fire from these nearby launch pits, would have endangered the lives of tens of thousands of Gazans. The IDF was careful not to damage the fuel storage facility while dismantling the launch pits. Another example of Hamas's systematic abuse of civilian and humanitarian infrastructure. Since the beginning of the war, more than 45,000 trucks have delivered 882,000 tons of humanitarian aid into Gaza. That's 80% more food compared to prior to the October the 7th. So that's the end of our briefing today. I will now take your questions. Please put them in the chat in the usual way with your news outlet. First question here is from Hannah Julian of the Jewish Press, and there's two questions here. The first question is: the UK, France, Germany called on Iran not to attack Israel out of concern. The attack would scrap the hostage release talks, which they connect with the desperate need to get humanitarian aid into Gaza, despite TikTok videos from Gazans themselves clearly showing the fallacy of this claim. Does Israel have any conversations with these countries explaining this erroneous view? Yes, of course. Thank you for that question, Hannah. Whichever visitors from foreign countries come to visit us at the current time, we're always keen that part of that trip is a full expose of Israel's effort to get more and more aid into Gaza. It's extremely important. We've shown this to Secretary of State Blinken very recently, but also many other international visiting leaders. It's an important aspect of this war, our effort to get as much aid as we possibly can. This fallacy of famine, it never existed, it never will exist. It's against our principles. Our battle is not with ordinary Gazans, it is of course with with Hamas and their terrorist backers in Iran, but also Islamic Jihad as well. And we're also making our efforts to get more and more aid into Gaza clear to everyone. It's on COGAT's Twitter feed every single day. We talk about it in every briefing here today. We share it with our friends and allies around the world about our efforts. But you're right, Hannah. I think it's difficult for the message to get through. This narrative has unfortunately, this false narrative has unfortunately taken hold. It's a key part of the Hamas narrative. It is incumbent on all news organizations to tell the truth about what's going on, not the propaganda which Hamas are sharing with people, whether it's casualty figures or this idea about shortages in Gaza. Much food is going in. We talked about, just today, we talked about the amounts of aid going in. That's 882,000 tons of humanitarian, a huge amount. More food, 80% more food compared to prior to October the 7th. COGAT has made that clear. We put it on, they put it on their Twitter feed. The government is having these discussions and people continue to make what we feel are just incorrect, inaccurate claims about shortages. There is a lot of food going in, and sometimes it feels that the narrative is just not cutting through because it's taken hold and people don't want to challenge it. But of course, the truth needs to get out there, and we're trying to do that every day from here, but also in our interactions with foreign governments. Next, Hannah Julian's second question. Hamas has announced it will not send any representative to the hostage talks set for Thursday. Will those talks be cancelled since only one of the two necessary parties will be present, will attend? Thank you for that question, Hannah. We here at the Israeli government are not responsible for the Hamas response. We can say that again and again, every single time it's been Hamas that's walked away from a deal. But we can talk about our perspective of this deal, and pursuant to the proposal by the US and the mediators, Israel will send the negotiations team on the agreed upon date, which is August the 15th. And the reason we're doing that is to finalize the details of the implementation of the framework agreement. Now, we want to get our hostages home, which is why we welcome the outline, which has also been supported by President Biden and the other mediating countries. Israel wants our hostages home while achieving the other goals of the war. Until now, Hamas has continued to set terms and refuse to reach an agreement. We, of course, will always play our part. Next question is from Joel Pollack at Breitbart News. Can you clarify whether Israel has or has not added demands to the terms of the proposed hostage deal over time? Thank you, Joel, for that question. We have made a policy not to discuss the discussions, not to talk about the discussions ongoing right now. We've made our position clear, what we want to get out of these negotiations. We've made our war aims clear. We want to get our people home, but we're not discussing the issues in public. These are difficult subjects. They are delicate subjects. People's lives literally hang in the balance. So as we have been up until now, we're not discussing the terms of the deal, except as we have already in more general terms, or any other changes. Look, we are dealing with a terrorist organization here, okay? A terrorist organization, not a trustworthy interlocutor, a partner on the other end of the table that there is a mutual trust. There is no trust between Israel and Hamas. They are a murderous terrorist organization that claim, even to this day, that they wish to carry out October the 7th again, and all the while denying the terrorist outrage, the murderous outrage, the children which they have murdered deliberately, the families which they burnt alive deliberately, the homes which they destroyed, the appalling rapes which are now well documented, all of which they deny. So that is the challenge which we're facing, trying to create an agreement. We have agreed to go down this path to get our people home. That is our priority. But we won't be discussing the other aspects of the agreement. Next question is from what looks like I think it's from Phoenix Television in Hong Kong, China. David, do you have any further talk about the Gaza school casualties? Some sources have said 100 deaths, and IDF said almost no children and women. And indeed, it is from Phoenix Television in Hong Kong. Thank you very much for that question. We have obviously been questioned a lot about it, and we have done many media interviews about it. But let me share with you our current assessment. Look, a terrorist command and control center located what was formerly a school. I think it's very important. If a school becomes a command center for terrorists, it is no longer a school. It's incorrect to call it a school compound. This was a site used, yes, but as a civilian shelter, but it's a site that we attacked, which served as the Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terror organization as a shelter and as a command center from which various attacks were planned and advanced against the IDF troops, against our troops and Israelis. I can confirm at this moment what we know is that at least 19 Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists were eliminated. We have published their photos. We have published their crimes, their affiliation. We have published who they were and which organization and what they did in that organization. Terrorists. We have a duty to defend our country. Now, this reflects a systematic pattern of exploiting the population and civilian infrastructure for terror purposes. These terrorist organizations have established in Gaza a vast network of tunnels which pass under homes, under hospitals, under mosques, under schools, and UN facilities, and they're used for terrorist operations, for the storage of weaponry, and for imprisoning our own Israeli hostages. Now, Israel sees harm caused to civilians as a tragedy, absolute tragedy. We do our utmost to avoid any harm to civilians. It is in the nature of the way that Hamas has been fighting us that some civilian deaths are inevitable because of the way that Hamas fights us. Hamas, of course, sees harm to civilians as a strategy. Hamas are not upset that there are civilian casualties. They're only upset there are not 10 times more civilian casualties. Now, Hamas are systematically violating international law, performing a war crime by using the civilian population as a human shield for its terror operations. Now, the data published by Hamas officials cannot be trusted. We say this again, Hamas are liars. They are systematic liars. The terrorist organization that burned whole families alive and then denied that these things happen, it is no longer a surprise to us here in Israel that their figures cannot be trusted. And we've proven this in previous incidents. For instance, the famous Al-Ali hospital attack, which was blamed on Israel, hundreds of casualties. It turned out to be an Islamic Jihad rocket that had misfired and killed Palestinians, fired by Palestinian terrorist organizations themselves. Now, the numbers of casualties are frequently exaggerated, inconsistent with the data held by us here by the Israeli government and the IDF. The precise weaponry used in the attack could not have caused the amount of damage and the casualties that are being reported. Furthermore, no severe damage was caused to the compound, as can be seen by the photos taken after the strike. Prior to the strike, numerous steps were taken by Israel to mitigate the risk of harming civilians, including the use of a small warhead, aerial surveillance, intelligence information. The event is still under review by the IDF, and we will come back with our conclusions shortly. Okay, next question. Any other questions? I've got another question here from Dan Williams of Bloomberg. Let me share with you that question. Okay. Does Israel have indications that Iran has decided to attack it in coming days? Thank you for that question, Dan. And your second part of your question is, has Israel adjusted any of its terms for a Gaza truce hostage deal? So in that second part of the question, Dan, we've already dealt with that in my comments about the deal. But let me deal with Iran in particular. Look, we understand the danger which is facing us from Iran, but let me be quite clear. Yes, of course, we understand their strategy, the threat which they have made against us, but Israel is strong and Israel is ready. This Iranian axis of evil has formed a stranglehold against us here in Israel. It's a ring of armed terror armies. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, the Houthis in Yemen, and other militias. But we need to be quite clear that, of course, we will always put our first hand out to peace, first and foremost. That's always the Israeli way of doing things. But when that hand of peace is rejected and we are met with terror and calls for our destruction, as Iran does, Israel will exact a heavy price for any aggression against us from any arena. Our long arm will reach anyone who causes harm to our civilians, and the elimination of the commanders of the military wings of both Hamas and Hezbollah sends a clear message to anyone that threatens this country. Against the backdrop of these threats, the state of Israel is ready for any scenario, both in ways which you have seen and ways which you have not seen, both defensively and offensively. Now, we make clear that there is still no current change to the defence instructions by the Home Front Command, but we encourage our population to remain informed and to follow any new guidance as instructed. As I said before, Israel is strong and we are ready. Okay, next question here is from Jacek Tasik from TVN Poland. Jerusalem Post writes that Israel may conduct a preemptive attack. Do you confirm it? So you're asking an Israeli government spokesman, Jacek Tasik, from TVN in Poland. You're asking an Israeli government spokesman if we will confirm that we are about to make a preemptive strike, as you've read in the Jerusalem Post. I don't know how to answer that question. It may be a little bit beyond me. We've made our views clear about our intentions to defend ourselves. We'll always defend ourselves, and we'll take whatever necessary action is needed, both defensively and offensively. Experience has taught our people that when other regimes like Iran state very clearly, it's the Iranian regime, not the Iranian people, because we make a very clear distinction. The Iranian regime, when they say that they wish to destroy this country, we believe them. Years of experience have taught this country that when other leaders say they wish to destroy this country, we believe them. We take them seriously. Other countries may not. We most certainly do. And together with our allies, we are most gratified that our allies in the US and others are standing ready to defend against this Islamo-fascist state that is seeking to destabilize the region and destabilize the world. We're only a stopgap here in Israel because we're in their neighborhood, but they're after other countries, other democracies as well. They've made that absolutely clear. Okay, I think that's the last question. So with that, thank you for joining us. We'll have another briefing here tomorrow. Same time, 3:30 Israeli time. In the meantime, please feel free to be in touch with us for interview or for any other questions in the usual way. Thank you very much, and please do stay safe, and thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.